Добрий вечір. Good evening, everyone. My name is Uliana Hlynchak. I'm the head of the programming department here, and I would like to greet you at our KUMF gallery on behalf of our directors. Art is an avant-garde of the society. Through art, it's music or paintings or literature, one can see what's happening in the contemporary life. And if art is an avant-garde of the society, poetry is avant-garde of the avant-garde. You know why? Because painting takes time to create, music as well, long book also, but poetry is the creation of the momentum. Some emotion comes, or some, the poet may see something or hear a phrase, a word, and from that starts the poem. Yes, author, poet later, goes back and maybe refines the poetry, but it's the creation of the moment. And today, we are very honored to have with us Lyuba Yakimchuk, poetess and screenwriter from Ukraine, who is the cultural ambassador of Ukraine today. She travels the world with her book, her poems. One of the books is Apricots of Donbas, translated into English, and her poetry translated into 30 different languages. Also, Lyuba is a witness. She lives in Kyiv, and she's a witness of a genocide that's happening in Ukraine today. And it's very important that Lyuba and people like Lyuba traveling the world and telling the world what's happening today in Ukraine. And today you will hear more about Lyuba's work, and our moderator is Sophie Ivanka. She's a PhD student at the University of Toronto, and she studies comparative literature. Proszę дуже.
Thank you, Uliana, for the introduction. Thank you for everyone for coming out tonight. I thought we would start with having Lyuba read a few of her poems. I first read Lyuba's book a few years ago now, and she was one of the first writers and Ukrainian contemporary writers, which made me interested in studying Ukrainian literature. So I'm very excited to be here today with her.
Go to next page.
Yeah, somebody needs to help us.
So Lyuba will be reading in Ukrainian, but you will see English translation here. This is the one, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is decomposition. Okay, it's going to be decomposition.
It can be the other one.
The first one?
The previous one, probably. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here in this UNO space. And I will start with the first part of long poem Apricots of Donbas, which is also started with kind of motto, where no more apricots grow, Russia starts. Let's do. Абрикоси Донбасу. Там, де не ростуть абрикоси, починається Росія. Вугілля обличчя. Із очима морськими синіми та з волоссям жовтим, ляним, трохи волиняним. Це не прапор, це стоїть у шахті по коліна у воді мій тато. Його обличчя, як вугілля, із відтиском польового хвоща до потопного. Роками розтоптане. Море твердне сіллю, трава твердне вугіллям, а тато стає, як трава ковила, сивим. Він чоловік, а чоловіки не плачуть, так кажуть в рекламі. А щоки його рівчаками порубала шахта, і вугілля, добуте з обличчя мого батька, згоріло в Донбасі пічках і багаттях. А десь там, високо, стоїть терикон, гарчить терикон, як дракон, як сфінкс, що захищає свого Тутанхамона. І знаю тільки я одна, що посеред степу терикон – це корки від пляшок, які тато випив, і попіл від цигарок, що викурив тато. And the next poem, decomposition. Next poem is decomposition. It was written in 2014, actually, when war was started in Ukraine. На Східному фронті без змін. Скільки можна без змін? Метал перед смертю стає гарячим, а люди від нього холодними. Не кажіть мені про якийсь там Луганськ. Він давно лише Ганськ. Лу зрівняли з асфальтом червоним. Мої друзі в заручниках. І до Нецька мені не дістатися, щоб витягти із підвалів, завалів та з підвалів. А ви пишете вірші, красиві, як вишиванка. А ви пишете вірші, ідеально гладенькі, високу поезію золоту. Про війну не буває поезії. Про війну є лише розкладання, лише літери, і всі вони р. Первомайськ розбомбили на Перво і Майськ. Безкінечно маєтесь, наче вперше. Знову там скінчилась війна, але мир так і не починався. А де Бальцево? Де моє Бальцево? Там більше не родиться Сосюра, уже більше ніхто із людей не родиться. Я дивлюся на коло обрій. Він трикутний, і поле соняхів опустило голови. Вони стали чорні й сухі, як і я, вже страшенно стара. І я більше не Люба, лише ба. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think with those readings in mind, we have this beautiful sound of poetry in our heads and of the geography of Donbas. But I wanted to start with the very beginning of your career, your childhood, and was hoping you could tell us about your journey to poetry. Did you write as a child?
I started to write at 9. I was only 9 years old, and I tried to write in two languages, actually. I was born in a Russian-speaking family, and I tried to write in both, in Ukrainian and Russian. And it feels as like, you know, like Ukrainian is more nature for me. It's more cool, it's cool for me. It's interesting for me, and this is my tool to write about everything. Yeah, and I wanted, at the time, I wanted to reach justice, especially talking about my, when I was a teen. It was usually about justice. Also, I write about ecology, kind of ecology topics, about water, for instance. It was now probably it sounds funny for me because it was like childish poems. Yes, but it was my way to think about reality, to write this poetry, and poetry was kind of my way to think everything over and to understand this reality. I was admire life and every part of this life, starting with kind of flowers my mother showed me when I was a child, for instance, in our vegetable garden, even like cucumber flowers or apricots flowers also, and it was kind of a way to exist for me at that time. Something like this. Yeah, and I was okay about my journey. It's like not only about childhood. Talking about journey, when I was 13, I got the very first honorarium, and I was like proud to have to earn some money with poetry, of course. And even I bought 2 books on this. It was like enough to buy 2 books. It was pretty enormous for a teen. Yes, and we have this 90th year in Ukraine, and everyone in Ukraine was poor, and we didn't have money for months because was economical crisis in Ukraine, and my father was a miner, and he didn't get his salary for sometimes 6 months. Yes, but later, when I already was like young adult, I considered yourself like a poet. I knew this about myself like all the time, but I started to call myself a poet, and it already was part of my identity, and I cannot imagine my life without poetry. It's the best genre of the literature for forever for me. Yes, and sometimes I can switch from poetry to, for instance, to script writing, screenwriting, or playwriting for theatrical plays, or something else, essays and so on. But poetry is the biggest thing for me, you know? It's like forever. And it also, I consider it like part of musician tradition. You mentioned about it. It's really essential for me, because during ancient time poetry didn't exist without music, and it's also essential for me. I work on this rhythmical part of my poetry.
What was your poetry like prior to 2014? Had you planned to publish a collection already? Were you using similar wordplay as we heard in the poem Decomposition?
Some of this poetry were written before war was started in Ukraine, but of course every writer planned to create a book, and some of these poems were already written, like probably most of them, before very first invasion of Ukraine, which Russia committed. But you know, when I trying to build whole book, it's usually different way, because sometimes I can like throw out some poems because it doesn't work. They don't work in this book. And it depends which narrative I want to build, how it's gonna like changing, something should change, or how it works in whole book. It's usually different way. I can write a lot, but use some of those poems, only some of them. Yeah, and it's like this.
So how did the war in 2014 and then your internal displacement afterwards?
Я маю прохання, можете так говорити, щоб ми чули ту?
О, ближче до мікрофону.
How
Бо що ж є зле?
Так, добре.
Вибачте. Чому спитаєте, чи хтось є англомовним?
Окей, Софійко, прошу, продовжуй. Потім питання будуть в кінці, будь ласка, слухайте.
Питають, чи є хтось англомовний.
Так, є тут багато англомовних.
Є.
Так.
Так, але питання по-українськи.
Окей.
А,
Так, науково, спокійно, точно, докладно і українською мовою.
Діаспора завжди каже,
Продовжаємо це.
окей.
Давай, слухаємо.
Okay.
Слухаємо, давайте.
I wanted to ask how war in 2014 and how your then displacement impacted the poetry book that did end up being published.
In 2014, I realized that language is changing because of poetry and for poets as well. And I realized that language is changing. It was like the very first time it was like kind of feeling for me, and I tried to find a way to describe it, to find words for this new reality. And I like knew lots of cities which already destroyed during this war, and I tried to found this connection between language and reality, and show that when reality is destroyed, like words, cities were destroyed, that means a language was destroyed, and this is how my poetry decomposition Rozkładania appeared. So I tried to find a new way, but talking about nowadays war, it's already changed because we have lots of drone attacks, you know, it's not safe even in Kyiv, and reality is decomposing all the time. And we have in Ukrainian language already today, already described this thing. We have event before at university, and I already described how it works. I'll give you an example. For instance, we have here electricity, yes, a lot of light here, and we even didn't mention it. We take it for granted. For us, it's normal to have light here, but talking about war, when the war started, and electricity became something which can show our cities for enemy and help to use the artillery fire more precisely and to change to hit, just in case to hit our cities. Electricity became something dangerous, and during the very first months full-scale invasion, Ukrainian authority asked us to black out our windows. It was called світло маскування. We masked our windows, and it was just blackout. They were blackout. Do not show our enemy where we are, and to make the work harder. And the electricity became something dangerous, but afterwards we already moved on, and Kyiv region was liberated from Russian soldiers and from Russian army, and electricity became something normal again. But then Russia started to destroy our electricity infrastructure since October 2022. And till now, we have these drone attacks and missiles attacks on electricity and heating infrastructure, energy infrastructure in general. And electricity became something valuable. During this winter, sometimes I didn't have electricity for 3 days in my apartment. And it was awful. It was really cold in Ukraine. We had 25 degrees Celsius in Kyiv. And electricity became something valuable. And I remember, after some days without electricity, my mother called me and said, "We have so much electricity today." So it was about something about money or heritage, something miracle happened, and electricity became something valuable. And we have lots of words which change they had this shift in their meaning all the time. Space places where we can hide, safe places. We call them safe places in our house. It can be a corridor because no windows in our corridors, or bathroom, or even bath tube can be a safe place where you can feel more safe during missile attacks, and you can preserve your life in case your building would be destroyed. So it's changing all the time. At the same time, we have inflation of words. This word war, it's not work like it was before, because we already said it so much time, and I do not use this word already in my poetry because it is already it haven't sense at all. It's sense just less and less sense in it. And we also have new words created, talking about bavovna, for instance, word. Russian calls, it's interesting, it's pretty interesting, because Russians calls explosion, they calls explosion like clap, chlapok, clap and explosion. And they're trying to use, to make these events, this explosion less dangerous for them in Russia. and they call it's like normal word for them. But some Russian bots who made the comments under Ukrainian posts and so on, they like use Google Translate, and it was translated kind of into like bavovna, which means cotton. Cotton, like this clap was translated like a cotton because we have homonyms in Russian like chlopok and chlopok. And it was translated like bavovna, and now in Ukraine we call bavovna explosion in Russia, and these explosions which Ukraine created in Russia targeting their oil infrastructure to create economical crisis in Russia and to stop this war. We call this bavovna, so when you use washing machine, you remember it. It's cotton, it's about explosion in Russia. So it's something like this, and you know, all the time I trying also in my poetry, I'm trying to describe how reality is changing using this new approach of mine. Of course, I'm based on Ukrainian tradition, and usually it's Ukrainian avant-garde tradition. And I'm talking about Mikhail, the very first Ukrainian futurist from executed Renaissance, because this generation was executed in 2030s or 1930s during Stalin time, actually. And of course, it's like in general, like word avant-garde as well, and I admire this part of literature. So I'm not only poetry is avant-garde of avant-garde, and me is avant-garde of avant-garde poetry. So it's lots of avant-garde here, and Ukraine is on avant-garde actually, talking about Ukrainian army. Ukrainian army now is one of the strongest army of the world, one of two of them, Russian and Ukrainian one, because this war is modern, and this is quite a different war, and all weapons already became kind of old-fashioned during this war, and we already had created new. Unfortunately, we didn't have choice. But we should do this to survive, actually.
Thank you. I'm wondering, at a time of war where words are so unstable and constantly changing, why is it so important to be producing literature for you, and what do you think makes readers in Ukraine and abroad so attracted to this literature and want to read, even if the conditions are so extreme?
No, I think this is a question of changing reality, and we need Ukrainian have this experience. Unfortunately, we have this experience of war and how to survive during war, also using culture, because culture help us survive in Ukraine. During war time, publishing market is rising all the time. Poet can gather like huge audience, kind of theatrical places can be sold out for poetry events. And talking about culture in general, the same situation with different genres of art. For instance, in Seattle we have all the time we have lots of sold out, and it's not possible to buy a ticket for some performances. For instance, for Urivsky, it's a theatrical director. For Urivsky plays, it's performances. It's not possible to buy a ticket. It's like disappear in 20 minutes, and I succeed only one time to buy them. So, you know, culture became something essential for us, and also culture can be kind of model for adaptation to new reality. And I believe so. We can compare, for instance, genetics. To change your genes, you need more time. And somebody is worried. word odd. You need more time to change your gene for like better adaptation for new reality. But talking about culture, it's faster way. It can take some days or months or years, but not centuries. And Ukrainians, we have this experience, and there are some people who aren't and do not understand reality exchange. And the culture, literature is the way to understand how it can be, how reality was changed, and this is a good way to be prepared before what was started in like European country or in different like cities or countries. Yes.
Thank you. Uliana introduced you earlier as a cultural ambassador, and as we know, your book has been and your poems have been translated into so many different languages. I wonder what you see as the importance of being a cultural ambassador, if you describe yourself that way, and of this global reception of your book and your poems.
I don't need to describe yourself in that way. Somebody described already me. It's like I don't know what to say.
Would you say when you are reading your poems abroad, that you are a kind of ambassador of Ukraine and Ukraine?
Yeah, I got your question, but I don't know what to add else. Like I'm just trying to share my experience, and I'm just trying to find the support for Ukraine, and but I do not believe like we can transfer our I just lost this word, dosvit, yes, experience, but it's possible to to experience for people abroad experience such kind of emotion we experienced before, and it works with empathy, and that's all. Yeah.
Your poems have been. Okay. I will ask the last question, and then we'll go to the readings. I wanted to ask. We have many questions here. I want to ask about a recent film that you worked on, Budynok Slovo, and I wondered what drew you to this project about the executed Renaissance and how you see the legacy of their work today.
Executed Renaissance, this is, yes, a part of my interest, and it was film director Taras Tomenko who made this offer to write with him the script for this movie actually. And talking about executed Renaissance, we feel kind of connection between this generation of Ukrainian writers who were suffered because of Moscow, because of Russia, because of their repressions. But at that time, we didn't have own state, and Ukraine was under Russian occupation. It was colonized by Russia. But now we have own state, and we have more choices in Ukraine. We can escape sometimes occupation and move to territories under Ukrainian control. And talking about this generation, it was like a precaution probably for us, because this generation was shot by Soviet authority just because they wrote in Ukrainian language, and they create a renaissance of Ukrainian culture, and Ukrainian culture became really strong at that time because there weren't there weren't restrictions during early Soviet time, and after Russian Empire, because before in Russian Empire we had this restriction, and sometimes we Ukrainians weren't allowed to write in Ukrainian language, and it was it was also essential to understand which state Russia was and is right now for me, and to bring back these Ukrainian writers into Ukrainian canon, because they were banned during Soviet time, and in independent Ukraine we just started to read them, to study them in our school, Ukrainian schools. Now this is part of Ukrainian canon, and it's already reconsidered. We already republished books, and we create this film about Slovo house, because in Kharkiv it was like it is and it was buildings which were built only for these writers to live together, to create literature, and probably to spy. To have them together and to spy, to control them, to control their narration. And during 30 years, lots of them were arrested and killed. Yes, and we just create this screen and create this noise.
Thank you so much. And I think there's many more questions to be asked, and you'll all have a chance after Lyuba reads one of her poems to ask your questions, so you can think about them in the meantime. But we've all been waiting eagerly to hear some more poetry.
I have a crisis. Okay, я буду. Добре. У мене до тебе криза. Ти підкурював сигарету, а вона не горіла. Стояло літо, і дівчата спалахували від першого ліпшого, а я від тебе вже ні. Наша любов зникла безвісти, пояснюю другу, пропала на одній із воєн, що ми вели в себе на кухні. Замінив слово «війна» на «криза», каже він, адже кризи бувають у всіх. Пам'ятаєш, була Друга світова криза, відповідно і Перша світова. Громадянська криза, у кожного своя. Я забула про холодну кризу, їх наче теж було дві. А ще ж про визвольну кризу треба згадати. Як добре це звучить, визвольна криза 1648-1657. Так і запишіть у підручниках. Криза, яка визволяє, назавжди вивільнює. Мій прадід загинув від Другої світової кризи. Можливо, від руки іншого мого прадіда. Або від його автомату, або від його танка. От тільки не ясно, як цю кризу вони вели один з одним. Чи криза, як мор, їх убила сама? Бо ж у кризах ніби ніхто не винен. Вони невідворотні, як смерть. І коли наша з тобою хатня війна перетворюється на кризу, чи стає легше, чи менше болить? Хіба птахи повертаються з півдня до нас? А може це ми їдемо їм назустріч? І що це за мова в нас така? Бракує слів, щоб описати наші почуття, лишаються лише криза і любов, як антоніми. Але якщо любов буде такою складною із цими спалахами і згасаннями, як кров і біль, і кров – це зовсім не місячні, а якесь нове моє почуття, а біль – це твоє. Якщо вона буде складеною з двох різних почуттів, то скоро любов почнуть називати кризою. У мене до тебе криза, Люба, давай одружимось, буде легше обом. У нас криза, краще би нам розлучитися. During war, Ukrainians make lots of jokes, and actually our life approach, our vitality helps us to survive, to resist actually, and me too. I'm part of Ukrainian culture. So. Неголена нога, unshaven leg. Поголила одну ногу, а про другу забула. Механічно вдягла білу блузку, коротку спідничку, чорні сережки, червоні губи і пішла на робочу зустріч, сіла і поклала ногу на ногу, голену на неголену. О, ти ж феміністка, шепочуть мені. Бачу, у тебе ноги не голені. Дорогі колеги, давайте будемо об'єктивні. Права нога голена, а от ліва ні. Відповідно, ніяк не можна сказати, що обидві ноги не голені. На лівій стирчать чорні волосинки, а от права зовсім права, і вона гладенька. Одна нога феміністична і волохата, справді, а от друга патріархальна, як шовк, да? Як це можна поєднувати? Обурюються одні жінки. Як так можна ходити? Дивуються інші жінки. Вдома розповідаються коханому, поклавши ногу на ногу, феміністичну на патріархальну, а потім навпаки, патріархальну на феміністичну. А коханий присідає біля моїх ніг, цілує їх і шепоче: а я люблю тебе і неголену, і голену, і напівголену, і зовсім оголену. Можна скидати, потім, якщо вернусь. Ага, так. Це з нових віршів from new poems, which isn't translated. Oh, it's translated. They are translated, but isn't in this book, actually. Yes. Так. I already got it. Виробництво ніжності. It's translated kind of making of tenderness, but I would translate tenderness production probably like on factory, you know, but it's editors who did this to me. It was виробництво ніжності. Because I like this, you know, industrial approach, industrial topics, and I like this. It's probably non-poetic for the USA editors. It was published in a magazine, like literature magazine, but it's really good for me. I like this. Urban topics. Виробництво ніжності. We have already music. It's like with music. Let's work with it. З віконного скла знімаю скотч. Пристав, зубами не відгризеш. У найближчий супермаркет вибігаю за губками і рукавичками. Кухонний шкрибок про всяк випадок у кошик кидаю. На стенді з розчісками беру до рук щітку для волосся. Зроблено в Харкові, пишуть. Значить, довго служитиме, думаю, як Харків стійке, аж хочеться сказати вічне. Хоч у мене розчісок більше, ніж волосся для них. Проте зроблено в Харкові переконує, бо ж не розчіску, а ніжність зроблено, яка хвилею підіймається і розтікається тілом. І де вони роблять цю ніжність під час бойових дій? У метро? В укритті? У цеху? Проходжуся рядами супермаркетовими та прихоплюю апельсиновий сік з Миколаєва, томатну пасту, останню баночку з Херсона, йогурт з Кременчука. Бахмутської солі все таки нема, із Солидара теж не завозили. Скоро з'явиться, каже продавчиня, ніби все вона знає про геополітику. Не дозволяє перепитати та завертає за кетчупів ряд. Скоро з'явиться. Коли відмиваю вікна вдома, радіотрансляція розливається кімнатами, розтікається поверхнею скла, уже майже чистого, розливається ніжністю з білої церкви, де збили ракету, що прямувала з акваторії Чорного моря. Сюди прямувала, де шибки уже не захищені скотчем, де віконні пройоми не закладені цеглою книг, де скло пропускає світло та вибухові хвилі. Тож я сьогодні розчешу волосся ніжністю. Завтра з'їм ніжність на сніданок. На вечерю зроблю з ніжністю соус. Може, звільнять з окупації ніжність сипку, і я м'ясо до соусу пересолю. Перемога повинна бути добре посолена. Я ще не пробувала аж такої жагучої ніжності зовсім ніколи. Але неодмінно кажу вам, спробую. Yeah, in Ukrainian language it's called "Коли вона скінчилась", and it's like literally we can translate it like when it was over, because I do not use word war, but this is like translator's interpretation, and I accepted it. It's okay for me, because in Ukrainian we already like it's understandable everything, and I have lots of kind of silent part of this poetry because it's everything is understandable, but this is interpretation for English language readers. Коли вона скінчилась, in Ukrainian language, коли війна скінчилась, and коли вона скінчилась, війна, war, and вона, it's like sound pretty similar. Їжте хліб із зерна, що під небом росло прошитим ракетами. Ось тут риба і мідії, які плавали в морі одному з воєнними кораблями. Ось вино врожаю 2022-го. Виноград цей підв'язували під час обстрілів, поки руки невинним нашим зв'язували вороги. Поряд бігають діти, які росли без електрики, виростали в сирих укриттях висоток та шкіл. І не треба цих пафосних фраз, що діти – це квіти, бо кімнатні рослини загинули вечорами зимовими, без тепла, без світла, без догляду. Наші ж діти навчились рости під бетоном, на глибині, навчилися жити в коридорах і ваннах. Як скінчилась вона, ми зібрались на вулицях, розповідали одне одному, як то жити було Україні, яку ракетили й дронили, як то жити було Україні безелектричній, безводній, повертатися в магазин тричі, щоб застати час без тривог, приходити в перукарню двічі, другий раз, щоб достригтися, коли дали електрику, як то жити було лише вірою, що ворогів уб'ємо до одного, а кожного з друзів обіймемо. Ми зібрались та пили терпке вино. Часом озиралися та гукали дітей, щоб не відходили надто далеко, особливо в посадку.
І тепер час на питання. So if you have any questions in English or Ukrainian to ask Lyuba, you can go ahead.
I have a question. First of all, let me congratulate you on your, compliment you on your creative poetry. As you call it, avant-garde. The comment I have is poetry is probably the most difficult art form to translate into another language.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to ask you, and you've translated, or a lot of your work has been translated into many languages. You speak English well, so you can probably edit some of that yourself. But how much control do you actually have over the translation? And the poetry that we've just seen tonight, is that basically how you would translate it yourself?
I'm talking about translation. You can see I try not to interfere in the translation.
But it's your work, so you
But yeah, but of course I read and I can explain translator more. I can also ask about rhythm, to change some rhythm, because it's like мені залежить, it's like essential for me to have like special rhythm in this poetry. Sometimes it's kind of rhythm from Bible or from some Ukrainian folk songs. It can be like this. It depends on, or from just rhythm which I created. Because it's poetry for me. It's like musician. It's part of music as well. Talking about meaning translation, my translator, and I'm trying to talk with them about it, they translate usually kind of effects. For instance, it's not possible to translate into English. I have such line that I didn't read it here, but I have білизна, але вона чорна, тому я називаю її чорнизною. Білизна і чорнизна. It's not possible to translate into English. I cannot show you this approach. Yes, but translator can find a new way, and they translated like this underwear is scanties, so let's call it scanties or something like this. So, and you've seen here like Donetsk, yes, і Донецька мені не дістатися. I cannot reach Donetsk, yes, but I just like cut Donetsk word into two particles, and they translated I can't do Netsk. And this is amazing for me. I like this approach because I needed these particles of these words works just without each other, you know. And also, the really challenging is for translator to translate swearing words. Sometimes I have some, not so much, but I have some of them. For instance, in my one poetry, I have it's poetry called "How I Killed." And in the end of this poetry, I need a words, kind of killing words. And in Ukrainian language, I use nach. This is part of this go fuck yourself, you know, like nach. And it sounds like bach, like this is gunshot. And it's not, and in some languages, for instance, like Scandinavian one, they do not use lots of swearing words at all, and they translated it like kind of them, but in their language. But talking about Polish language, in Polish, they have lots of swearing words, more than the Ukrainian art, and even like university teacher can use them during lecture. These words like kurwa and something like this. And my Polish translator, Aneta Kaminska, translated these words into Polish like pizdiach. It's like Ukrainians can understand this because it's understandable for us as well. So level of this emotional level is different in different languages, and translators trying to find a way to deal, to cope with this situation, and sometimes it can be funny, yes, for me as well, but I love this so much, and I can read some languages, and I can check how it worked there in French as well. I know a little bit French language, and it's pretty interesting for me sometimes to understand, because my poetry, it's really hard for translators. And talking about for this decomposition poem, I thought before it would be possible to translate it all, but translator, it's translated in probably in 28 languages. This poem is translated. It's like the translators love these poems and love to translate it. It's kind of challenging, but if you are a good translator, it's like challenge for you to do this, and yeah, they like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for this question.
Other questions?
Ви колись писали російською також. Чи є улюблені старі вірші, що ви вирішили перекласти в українську? Чи залишили ті думки?
Ні.
So the question is, if Lyuba ever...
Yeah, I already told here I wrote in Russian as well, but I have written only 2 poems, and I was 9 years old, so I lost everything, fortunately. I did not have them. Yes, and I didn't try to translate it. I dislike this way, and you know, I didn't feel like it was my voice writing in Russian, and it was more natural for me to write in Ukrainian language. So I was living in Russian speaking like city and family, but I wrote in Ukrainian. It was natural for me.
А ці перекладені також в російську?
Oh, this is a tough question, because after 2022, when Russian translators became speculate with Ukrainian translation, I just forbidden to translate my poetry into Russian, because when my friend of mine, Victoria Amelina, was killed by their missile, without permission, family permission, they translated her poetry. They started to translate her poetry, and this was so unmoral for me, and I just forbidden. But before I was translated, and it was Ukrainian writers, Ukrainian poets like Boris Khersonsky, Ukrainian poet from Odessa, who translated my poem Apricots of Donbas into Russian. If Russians want to read my poems, and they won't, they need to learn Ukrainian language, or English at least.
Any more questions? Okay, прошу.
Чи вас цікавить Семенко? Згадуєте кілька разів. Ви чули про стріху?
Про Едварда Стріха, of course. Of course I know Едвард Стріха.
Є група в діаспорі, була в 50-х роках, і тоді продовжилася в 80-х, тепер його у Босні. Do you have that edition that was published in the diaspora?
Which edition? By Edward Stricha?
Yes.
I do not have this edition, but I read a lot of his poetry. Of course, in New Generation magazine, for instance, we are talking about Ukrainian futurists, and one of them is Mikhail Semenko. This is the very first futurist who started to write in 1914. It's pretty strange because war was started a century after, and. Yes, and question was about Edward Stricha. Edward Stricha, this is like person, like poet, created by a person. It was what is his real name? Can you remind me, please? Edward Stricha, Кость Буревій. It was Kost Burevy who created Edward Stricha, which wrote poetry about Ukrainian futurists, and it was like joke by Kost Burevy, who disliked Mikhail Semenko, and he wrote kind of ironic poetry about him. Yeah, and it was a huge mystification in Ukrainian literature at the time. And Semenko didn't know about it, and Semenko published Edward Stricha in his magazine, which called Nova Generacija, New Generation. Yeah, and it was interesting story, because afterward Semenko killed Edward Stricha. He just wrote poems instead of him. And afterwards, Edward Stricha disappeared from Ukrainian literature, but it was huge mystification. It was a pretty interesting time in Ukrainian literature, Ukrainian 20s and 30s as well, when we had a lot of interesting literature jokes. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Прошу дуже.
I'm just curious to know, I read some of your poetry was read at the Grammys in 2022. How did that all come about? And sorry, were you there? I'm not that familiar with it all, and I don't think I watched many of the Grammys, but.
Me too.
How did that come about?
I was there in 2022, and I read my poetry during John Legend performance.
You were there?
I was there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was me who read my poem, which called Prayer, and it was actually work by Zenia Tompkins. She is translated from Ukrainian literature into English. And she was born in the USA diaspora, actually, and she translated Ukrainian literature, and he was in contact with Grammy producers, which wanted to. John Legend created a song about Ukraine, which called "Free," about freedom, free, and she just gave this idea to introduce Ukrainian poet, and they were looking for poets who are who had experience in music projects, and it was me who did a lot actually since 2009. I had lots of musician projects, and I just sent one of my poetry reading with music. Actually, it was project by Yuri Gurji and Serhiy Zhadan. I was introduced for this project about executed Renaissance, actually, about Расстреляны Відродження, and I read poems of Mikhail Semenko and Raisa Troyanker, and I just sent them. They considered me and introduced me, and I participated in Grammy. I was the very first poet who was on this scene. Yes, and it was really essential for us because it wasn't only support, it was huge support, of course, of Ukraine, but also before these songs, the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, had a speech, and after our song, we published Ukrainian bank account for donations. And I believe it worked because it was 9 million people in the USA who saw this Grammy, and I believe it helped the Ukrainian army in the time when we didn't have so much money and support. It was the essential part of the most essential part probably of this project. Yes.
Okay.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Well, maybe I'll have one question, and that's going to be the end of it. So you mentioned that Ukrainians create lots of humor about maybe some war-like situations, which are for us maybe not so humorous. Can you give us some examples of that?
Oh, of course. Now we have problem with electricity. You already know about it, and probably some journalists abroad don't want to publish material about electricity because nothing is seen on the page on these photos because it's dark in Kyiv. But still, talking about this, we have such kind of jokes. It's better spend whole life. Or it's better spend whole winter without electricity than entire life with Russians, for instance. We like make Russians miserable, and we create lots of joke about them. And also know about the swearing words which we use also. We replaced our road signs with these swearing words, and it was written not, for instance, not Kyiv, or not Myrhorod, or Poltava, or Kharkiv. It was written Russian "Go fuck yourself" and something like this. It was during the very first months full-scale invasion, when Russians didn't have actually this smartphones with them, and they use just real paper maps and real signs because it was forbidden for them use in this time use smartphones. Also, probably know Russia all the time. Russia threatened us with a nuclear weapon, and it's of course probably there is a way to go to depression or so on, but it's Ukrainian aren't like this. We don't think about depression at all. Ukrainians create on social media create kind of group where a kind of protocol was published about a nuclear war And in Kyiv we have Shikavitsa Hill. This is kind of small mountain in Kyiv, and the name is dedicated for like persons who found Kyiv. One of them was Czech, and it's called Shikavitsa. This is a famous Ukrainian hill. And there is a protocol. In case of nuclear war, we'll go to Shikavitsa to create orgy. So we have such kind of jokes, and lots of memes were created during this war. And every year we like can cope with this in this way. If we don't have electricity and we can work, but we can still make love and create new children, it's okay also. So we have such kind of way, and something opposite to this is love, is like strong feeling, and during war feeling are really sharp and strong, and this is our way to deal with everything, and we're trying to do like this because we do not have choice actually, and it helps us just to feel better probably.
Thank you very much. Let's thank Lyuba for this. Sorry, one more last question. Who has a question? Yuri, who has a question?
I saw a hand up over there.
Do you have a hand up?
Yes.
Okay, that's the last question.
This afternoon and this evening you mentioned choosing deliberately to write in Ukrainian and that you can express yourself better in Ukrainian. And I'm just wondering if you could say something in general about why Ukrainian is a richer language for literary expression.
And Ukrainian is which language?
A richer language.
Багатше.
Richer. Because this is my language. Language of my grandparents, not parents, but my grandparents, and already of my parents, because my son, all the time I spoke with him only in Ukrainian, and my parents wanted to be friendly with him, and they wanted him like them, and they switched into Ukrainian with my son. It was the way how it works in Ukraine.
Дякуємо, браво. So thank you, Lyuba, thank you, Sophia, very interesting evening. Lyuba's book, Apricots of Donbas, can be purchased on Amazon. Please buy it, read it, give it as a gift to your friends, and spread Ukrainian literature in the for English readers. Our next literary event will be far away from now. It's October 9. We will be presenting almanac of the contemporary short stories published in Poland in 3 languages, Polish, Ukrainian, and English, but the authors are Ukrainian. So October 9, please mark your calendars. And today from Ukraine, an exhibit coming called Kherson Not Stolen. It's just arriving today in the airport. We will be hanging it tomorrow, and the opening will be this Sunday, 2 o'clock. So please welcome to join. Що це є, Херсон?
No, we have the same purchase.
Oh, nice. Okay. So
with Semenko lines.
Oh, Semenko lines.
Poetry, yes.
Okay, so read his lines, and we will end the evening like this.
Я не умру від смерті, я умру від життя. This is Ukrainian motto, actually.
I will not die because of death, I will die because of life. From life.
Yeah.
Thank you. Дуже дякуємо. Just one more thing, sorry, I forgot to thank our sponsors, so Delta Bingo and KONTAKT Ukrainian Media. If you're not signed up on YouTube, you still have a chance to do it, because we bring you every week new stories. Thank you. Дуже дякую, що ви прийшли. Ей, супер. Дякую.
Bill.
You can still yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Possible tomorrow or
But,
after tomorrow?
yeah,
Yeah.
I will give you the time. Like,